Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, you're in the right spot. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and this guy right over here, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Tonight, we're going to be talking about UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The murder that occurred this Wednesday, December 4th, in Manhattan in front of the Hilton Hotel. Everybody's been talking about it. It's been all over the internet, but there's been a lot of information that's kind of misinformation-y. It's right, if that's even a word. There's been a lot of reports, and it's just like this, Ed, with every case. You know, you get information that is half-truths, and we're not even really knowing what they have because they're not releasing everything. And NYPD, as we know, it's our department. We keep things close to the vest because we are experts at A, catching a bad guy, and B, all of the tactics that you need to catch a perpetrator that's on the run. Because many of these shootings, and it's not just this high-profile CEO, many of the shootings that we handle as New York City detectives, people flee out of the 5 boroughs, and we got to go get them. So, Ed, how you doing tonight? What do you got going on? We're going to talk about the forensics and the guns and all of the misinformation as it pertains to the shooter. But what do you got going on, Ed?
Well, very busy, very busy between doctors and fixing my nephew's house, all of that good stuff. So I'm very tired, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I've been following the case closely, and the police commissioner had a press conference today, and she, like I said the last time, folks, that we're going to have teams of detectives out there gathering up all the surveillance security footage that they could from the various cameras in and around. And as I said, they tracked this guy before, during, and after his escape, and they got him into the Central Park. They got him coming out of the Central Park without his backpack. And then he heads right to the Port Authority bus terminal and jumps on a bus out of Dodge. So the commissioner got on TV today and said he's no longer in New York City.
And it's funny, Ed, that you said that. That's the exact mode of transportation that he allegedly used to get in here from Atlanta up to New York. But we heard that he was only here for a couple of days. Then we heard, again, this goes with the misinformation, and it happens in all the cases. We heard definitively that he came here on the 24th of November. So he's had a lot of time to do surveillance, to do his own reconning of specific locations. And, we can all sit and speculate about motivation and why he did this. But at the end of the day, the NYPD's job is to hunt and track this murderer down and bring him to justice. And that's what they're going to do.
And we know how big Central Park is, right? And so there's not many surveillance cameras in there, but they were able to conduct searches, and they found his backpack in the park. So they saw him going into the park with the backpack while he was on the bike. And then when he was leaving the park, he didn't have the backpack, and they found it. So that's going to be a treasure trove of forensic evidence.
I just want to also say, I want to tip my cap to the public, because you're going to hear in some of the media and the footage that we play tonight that the general public is calling in tons and tons of tips. Hundreds of tips are coming in. And I got to tell you, as we were going live, and that's why I was just now playing with my phone, I received 3 sets of tips from 3 different people as it pertains from this case. What do you think we're going to do with it, Ed? We're going to forward it to
the NYPD. Yeah.
We're going to forward it to our partners in the NYPD. And I want to thank you guys for going on to DutyRon.com. And look, I'm not saying that's a place to call in your tips. There's 1-800-577-TIPS. We're going to have that scrolling along the bottom later on. But I can't say enough how important it is. As detectives, retired detectives, we rely on the general public to be the eyes and the ears for justice. So kudos to everybody and anyone who's been calling in those tips. And I thank you for the 3 individuals that just tonight send in tips to us. Ed, let's go to ABC News. This is just from 35 minutes ago. So let's listen to what they have to say. And we'll be right back with our special guests, Jimmy, our firearms expert.
UnitedHealthcare. A source tells ABC News that police have just discovered what is suspected to be the backpack carried by the suspected shooter of Brian Thompson. The bag was found in Central Park, where the police had deployed officers and drones.
Eyewitness News reporter Josh Einiger is there, where police are still looking for the evidence, in particular that backpack now, Josh.
Yeah, Bill, Liz, this is an enormous break in the case. This is exactly why police were searching here in the park really over the last several days, and really specifically in the last couple of hours, with a huge show of force. And as you said, a source close to the law enforcement source familiar with the investigation telling ABC News that the backpack the shooter was wearing when he committed this crime Wednesday morning and was believed to have ditched in the park, that bag has now been recovered. What's in it, we don't know. What type of evidence is in it that could help identify him, still we don't know. And the police are just starting to get through it. But of course, it's an enormous break in this very difficult case.
The search for New York's most wanted man took flight today from the roof of an NYPD drone truck as high-tech cameras scanned every inch of heavily wooded sections of Central Park, assisted by dozens of cops on the ground. The needle in this haystack, the backpack the shooter was wearing when he gunned down UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson early Wednesday morning. Cameras captured the shooter riding his bike into the park with the bag a few minutes later, but when a camera reacquired him exiting the park on the Upper West Side, the bag was gone. Police believe it contains important evidence and that he ditched it somewhere in the park.
Now, as we speak, we have a huge canvass going on in Central Park. We still have not found the backpack, and so we're doing a full sweep of Central Park to find.
I just want to make it clear, Ed, before everybody gets like, what? Why am I hearing this? This was earlier recorded. This is the police commissioner, Commissioner Tisch, brand new, just on the job police commissioner. They interviewed her several hours before this. This was at 3 p.m. The footage that we were seeing just now was from 35, 40 minutes ago. So for those of you in the chat, she's saying that we're looking for the backpack. Boom. 3 hours later, they got the backpack. It's important because that, as Ed's going to talk about, is and could be a DNA and forensics treasure trove, right, Ed?
Oh yeah, 100% DNA. Not so much fingerprints, depending on the material that's there, but definitely DNA, hairs and fibers, maybe some gunshot residue from the gun. Who knows what else is in there.
Absolutely.
And that backpack, which we believe he dropped in Central Park.
Also today, detectives concluded the shooter skipped town from the bus station at the George Washington Bridge. Top brass taking to national news to get his picture out across the country.
We have him in a taxi cab, and the taxi cab takes him up to 178th Street and Broadway, which, as we know, is a Port Authority bus center. Those buses are interstate buses. That's why we believe he may have left New York City.
Hundreds of detectives have analyzed untold hours of footage from across the city, turning up a trove of images of the shooter since he arrived on a Greyhound bus late last month. But he was always mindful of cameras and wore his mask and hood to obstruct every view of him, except for one. A few days before the shooting, as he flirted with a woman at the Upper West Side youth hostel where he was staying, she convinced him to show her his smile, hence the only workable image of the alleged killer's face.
This was a fully masked person that we had to unmask and use good old-fashioned police work. We are on the right road to apprehend him and bring him to justice.
And again, the police say, according to law enforcement sources, that they have hit pay dirt just in the last couple of hours here in Central Park, finding the key piece of evidence they have been searching for, that backpack. Of course, they now have to process what's inside it. Police also revealed today they lifted DNA off a water bottle they believe the shooter had been drinking from. They're processing that evidence as well. They seem to be closing the gap in terms of identifying the suspect. But as long as that takes, he seems to be getting farther and farther away.
So there you have it. That's a lot of information, Ed. They got a lot of great DNA and forensic evidence. And we're going to talk a little bit about, once Jim comes on with us, we're going to talk a little bit about that hostel where he stayed. There was multiple people in each location. I think 4 to 12 people in each, but I think his had 4, a capacity of 4. And I've got inside images of not the actual room, but the room set up. that's going to also, we know they did a search warrant there and they scrubbed or forensically went through that room. If he stayed there for a number of days, there should be a lot of hairs and fibers and so forth, right?
Right. Yeah. They're extracting DNA from every article that may be associated with him touching it, the bottle, the cell phone, the backpack, all of that stuff. And then, he's probably not in the system in CODIS. So then they'll have to do genealogy and get him in that system and see if they can't find a familiar match. And because right now, they haven't put out a name, right? They haven't put out information about who this person is, so that they have Ebola be on the lookout for nationwide for an armed and dangerous man. So I suspect that's in the works right now. And everybody has his face now. It's international. So they're receiving thousands of tips that they have to run through. Just like the gun, there was a tip on the gun from a Connecticut gun store, but we have no indication that he went to Connecticut and purchased this specific type of gun that people are talking about. Which I don't want to jump ahead, but we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, no, it's important that you mentioned that, because the title of the show is UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, the shooting, and weapon expert is going to come on with us, and we're going to do an analysis, because so many people felt like, oh, this was an assassin gun, because that's what it's labeled as. So without further ado, let's bring him on. Ed, you can introduce him because he's your boy.
He's not my boy. He's my man. It's my man, Jimmy Janello from NYPD Firearms Unit, Ballistics Lab. Jim and I worked together for many years, did a lot of shooting reconstruction together, traveled overseas and did shooting reconstruction work in the Middle East. Jim's my man. Hey, Jim.
Appreciate that. Hello, guys. How are you?
Hey, so we saw you, Jim, and thank you for being here and taking out the time to educate our audience. Last time we had him on here, we were talking about the Delphi case, and that was a very controversial case. And Jim, you came on and explained it so well. I want to jump right into this B&T 9mm gun that the media has been talking about, that it's alleged that the perpetrator of this heinous murder of the CEO, Brian Thompson, allegedly used. I just wanted to get, before we start showing images and media, just your take, because you did get to see some of the footage, and I wanted to get your expert opinion on, what you think as it pertains to the weapon that was used to murder Brian Thompson.
Okay, so I've watched the video on that particular weapon. I'm not familiar personally with the weapon, but I watched the video. It's a unique design. It's based on an old World War II design. So it works in a different way than a regular semi-automatic would work. So we'll get into that a little further on with that. But also what I had to work with was grainy video until I found the second video that was a lot clearer. So I was able to formulate what's my opinion based on what I saw.
And I'd like to show the actual video, because it's important. Many news outlets are showing it blurred out, with the image blurred out of the execution or of the murder, however you want to refer to it as. But YouTube just doesn't take kindly to it. So we're just going to be forced to talk about it a little bit. But before we get into it, there's another piece to this that I don't know, Ed, if you saw this, but Fox 5 just about an hour ago reported that a paper bag was found as well in Central Park. Now, it makes me think, are they misconstruing the paper bag for the backpack? But that last report from ABC7 said it was the backpack. But let's take a listen to this report, because they're talking about a paper bag. So I'm going to put this on the screen, and we're going to just take a peek at it so everybody can see what we're seeing in real time.
Is believed to have left New York City.
It comes as police continue to search for clues that could help identify him. Fox 5's Richard Jacobus is live in Central Park with the very latest. Richard.
Natasha, Steve, so many tips coming into the NYPD over the last few days, and as they comb through hours of surveillance footage from subway stations to bus terminals and even private cameras, they do believe tonight, as you mentioned, that alleged killer is out of state, leaving on a bus from New York City days ago. To try and nail down this person of interest, the NYPD has spent much of the late afternoon here in Central Park looking for what could be the alleged killer's backpack. A likely tip called into cops that may have dropped the backpack shortly after the murder. More than 100 officers have been on foot while drones fly above, pinpointing areas that may be more difficult to access. So we go back on the day of the murder. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch saying that the suspect got all the way to West 86th and Central Park West with his bike. He loses the bike and hops in a cab that takes him up to 178th and Broadway. That's a Port Authority bus center where interstate buses travel to and from New York. Investigators believe this alleged killer got on one of those buses.
We had them getting on a bicycle and riding into Central Park. We then later pick him up on 77th Street, exiting the park of Central Park West, still with the bicycle. Eventually, we have him on 86th Street and Columbus Avenue, walking. He loses the bike. And then from there, we have him in a taxi cab, and the taxi cab takes him up to 178th Street and Broadway, which, as we know, is a Port Authority bus center. Those buses are interstate buses. That's why we believe he may have left New York City.
Do you know what bus?
That's NYPD Chief of Detectives Joseph Kenny. We've obtained this video tonight of the alleged killer riding on that bicycle before he drops it. But he's without his backpack on this bike. We slowed it down for you. Cops believe he dropped the backpack in the park. Then we're going to show you now exclusive footage of a brown shopping bag sitting next to a tree in Central Park near the 59th Street entrance. It's being guarded by an NYPD officer. Sources tell us that this bag contains clothing. Cops are now investigating whether they can connect this to this case. Now, experts have called this suspect methodical and clever, but they also say,
Ed, I just want to ask you, I'm not going to put us back on, but you see something like that and people look, oh, it's a brown paper bag, TJ Maxx, just laying against a tree in Central Park. How significant is that they found that? It looked like clothing was in there. And how deep will the forensic lab dive into that thing? They're gonna go head first into it, right?
Oh, absolutely. You package it up, get it to the lab. They're gonna get it onto a clean workbench and document every aspect of it. They're going to determine the make, model, and size of all this clothing, whether it's male, female, so forth. Could he have changed his clothing to change his identity, his description afterwards? Did he have that staged there in the park? So, they'll have to start looking at all this other footage because, as you know, we found footage well before the attack with his arrival to New York City, and then after and his exit. So maybe he staged this there. So they'll have to look for more footage to see if they can see him carrying a TJ Maxx paper bag. Did he go to TJ Maxx with some cash and buy some change of clothes, to change his appearance as he makes as good his escape? So you look at it for hairs and fibers, the DNA, and all that good stuff, and any pocket litter.
Yeah, and it was a decent sized backpack, so you never know. Yes, keep it real. They are reporting, ABC reporting just a short time ago that the backpack was located. This is just earlier footage about a brown paper bag. And, he could have scattered items across. Central Park is huge. So let's let the rest of this play.
That he makes mistakes, and it's up to investigators to find those mistakes and ultimately find him. That's why this manhunt continues tonight and most likely into the weekend, now out of state. We are live in Midtown. Richard Giacobas, Fox 5 News. Natasha.
All right, very interesting.
So there you have it. Important parts of the puzzle, and this is, again, going to be a now nationwide manhunt, and it could go outside of the country. We don't know. NYPD is known to hold things close to the vest. They're not going to release stuff unless they really need to. And these things that they're releasing to the media, it's all done for a reason. But I want to circle back to this firearm because it has been it's caused quite a stir up because people are correlating this firearm, Jim, to a professional assassin. And I'm going to ask Ed and you, Jimmy, what you guys' thoughts are on just by looking at this video. I know it's hard to make a decision, but based on looking at this video, Jim, I'll go to you first. What's your thoughts on the proficiency and how, the media and everyone, you could get so many different opinions on this thing, but people are talking that this was a professional hit or a hired hit. Thoughts on that, Jim?
Well, first of all three of us have experience with mafia type of organized crime type of professional hits. And the first thing that strikes me is that you would shoot him in the back of the head. You wouldn't shoot him in the chest and in the back and try to drop him like that.
Yeah.
This guy didn't get within 15 feet of him, 20 feet of him when he shot him. I don't think that was done in a professional manner at all.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the way he held the weapon, the way his stance was, he had some basics down, but he also made a couple of mistakes. I can show you one with this replica gun. As we know from carrying these firearms, I again talked about this yesterday. You need a firm grip on the gun to make it work to cycle properly. So if you weak-handed or limp-wristed it, it's going to affect that extraction and ejection process. So that guy, the shooter in this case, it looked like his grip he had more emphasis on the stabilizing hand than he did on the one holding the weapon. So it's possible that he limp-wristed it and caused the gun to not extract and eject after that first shot. So based on what I saw with that second video, which was clearer than the first video, he got the first shot off. That's fine. It looked like if there was an extraction process, it wasn't a full process. He had to clear the weapon to get that second shot off. So there was one shot fired, one jam, then another shot fired, then it looked like it jammed again, and then it was too blurry to really make an opinion.
Ed, I'm going to go to you next.
No, I 100% agree. Because of the previous episode, that you need to equal and opposite force in order for that gun, the physics of that gun to work properly. The energy is coming back towards the shooter's hand, and if the shooter's hand is not strong enough to withstand that energy, then the energy gets absorbed by the hand and it doesn't allow the gun to cycle correctly. Now, that's one aspect of it, right? Now, typically when that happens, what happens is what we call a stovepipe, where the cartridge may get stuck in the ejection port, and a new round hasn't been stripped from the magazine and put into chamber. So then he grabs the back of the gun. That's why I don't believe it's this assassin's gun, because he grabs the back of the gun and then he seems to clear it by pulling it back. He's pulling the slide back. Whereas that assassin's gun, you have to open the bolt, pull it back, and then go forward and lock the bolt to get the next round into the chamber. And you have to do that for every shot. That's why I don't think that's a practical gun to use in an assassination, especially when you're taking shots, 15 feet away. You're not up close and personal, shooting somebody in the back of the head at point blank range.
Yeah, and Jimmy, I know you have something to add to it, but this shows what you talked about before with his strong hand is not completely out. He has his elbow bent in this shot, and that's how he does it all along. Like you said, he's had his support straight out or close to straight out, but his elbow is bent. We're going to talk about what we think he was using here professionally in a few minutes, but Jim, go ahead with your thought.
What I was going to say, just working with what Ed just said, is that, to clear this weapon, you grip both sides, pull back on the weapon and clear the weapon. With that other weapon that people were mentioning, you have to twist a knob that's at the back of the weapon, pull it open, push it forward, and then twist it and lock it shut. And I didn't see that action at all in the video that I watched.
Yeah, that's the B&T 9mm that we're going to show in a few minutes.
I can just say one more thing, Ron. I apologize.
Go ahead, sure.
What Ed was talking about, a stovepipe, it looked like after that second shot, it's stovepiped. So that's why he had to clear that again.
Can you explain what a stovepipe is?
I don't have a cartridge case in the handy, but stovepipe is that when that ejector port opens up, this section over here on the gun, when that opens up, if it closes too soon, it catches that cartridge case on the way out. So it usually comes out on an angle like this to go towards the back of the gun. So it'll catch it in that, and that'll be sticking out like an old stovepipe.
Okay. Yeah, because some people in the chat might be like, what's a stovepipe? So
how many people have seen a stovepipe?
Appreciate you explaining it. And this is a 9mm cartridge, and I've got it up close. This is going to show you exactly what was found. Oops, that fell right out of my hand. That was what was found at the scene. This one's a hollow point, but that one was those were full metal jackets. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, but I believe it was a full metal jacket.
And he scribed the three different words on the side of the cartridge case, and those words were then linked back to a particular book that is written about insurance.
Yeah. And you know, some reports saying that there was 3 words inscribed on it, but I heard today the latest, the spent cartridge said deposed, a live cartridge said delayed. So there's reports of 3 and there's reports of 2. I'm going based on what I heard the most recent. But you know, again, this is a fluid investigation, and we're going to be getting stuff, you know, that's mixed. And I want to say thank you to everyone that's in the chat, because you guys in the chat are the heartbeat of this Crime Time with DutyRon community. Ed and I thank you, and Jimmy also thanks you, because I see a lot of people saying, I remember Jim. Somebody said, I remember Jimbo. Somebody called you Jimbo. But yeah, so people in the chat remember. But I want to play this piece from Banfield, because again, I didn't listen to it all, and I hope you guys don't mind. I know you guys are the pros here, especially Jim, when it comes to firearms. But I want to play this because they get into the gun a little bit, and I think it's important to hear what they have to say. So let's just play it. It's just 2 minutes.
It's what they call it in the movies, but technically it's a suppressor because it changes the sound. It doesn't make it silent.
So what about the jamming? And we'll run some of the video again.
So we don't really know.
That shows him hitting.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the gun is actually jamming so much as failure to feed. So they're different. And what Scott was showing was called a stovetop jam. But essentially,
you call it a stovetop.
In order for the ammo to get from here to here, which is where it fires. So normally the bullet is sitting, right here. When the gun goes off, as the bullet goes out the front, the casing exerts force against the back, and that cycles the gun. So in a proper cycling, that goes all the way back and then comes forward. And then when it comes back again, it ejects around and then it comes forward. But if you're using subsonic ammo, which is ammo that has a velocity of less than 1,100 feet per second, because you want it to be very quiet, it sometimes is underpowered. And so the slide will come back a little bit, but not far enough to eject that casing and not far enough to load the next round. It'll go back partly, and because now you just have a spent casing in there, you would manually have to throw that spent casing out in order to get the next.
And correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen. We saw him do that twice or maybe 3 times, right? Because as he was walking up to the victim, he made a little bit of a motion to go towards the victim, but then he just exit stage left and just walked off. Like you said, if this was a professional hit, the guy A wouldn't be going to Starbucks and getting coffee and dumping wrappers and dropping cell phones, and B, he would have went over and finished him off. He wouldn't, like you said, he hit him in the calf. In the initial shot, I think it was his left calf. Don't hold me to that. I think it was the left or maybe the right, but I believe it was the left. And then he shot him the second time in the back. But there was not any talk of a third or obviously a fourth shot. And if it was somebody who really wanted to finish him off, he could have walked right up to him and just, pumped a couple of rounds right into him and then walked off. He didn't do that.
Well, several things too. There was a female witness that was right in that doorway outside, and she went tearing ass out of there after he dropped the victim. Then there was also a guy in the parked SUV, the black SUV. There was a driver in there. So after he pumped those few rounds, and he was having so much problems with that gun, that's why I don't think he was proficient in the use of that gun with a suppressor. Okay. And I think he probably chose the wrong ammo as well. And he just wasn't.
Here's the woman you were talking about that runs off.
Yeah.
I have actual footage of her. She comes back to the scene, and she comes back to the scene. A uniformed police officer was interviewing that cab driver who was in this car right here. And he took video and pictures of him as he walked across and ran away. He was interviewing him, and they asked him to stop, and then she came walking up. So I thought it was interesting. And how I knew it was her is she came back with that same white cup of coffee with the white top. And you could see it was her. And I'll play that in a few minutes. But this is just interesting to see this as it's happening. And as she hears that pop, turns around and she's like, I'm getting the hell out of here. And he does, he just lets her go. So interesting. Let's go to the chat because everybody's been hanging out here with us. Hashtag Ed, hashtag Jim.
Ron, can I add one thing if I can?
Yeah, sure.
I did find a cartridge case, so just to illustrate what a stovepipe would look like.
Perfect.
And usually it's looked at this way, so it's out of the chamber, usually on an angle as it gets caught.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jim. Let's look at the chat. I want to say hello to everybody who is here, who's hanging out, and thank you to the moderators who are keeping it classy. I know this is a rough conversation, and we saw this. Ed, you and I spoke about it in some of the comment sections. There's a lot of people that are frustrated with the healthcare system. UnitedHealthcare has the highest rejection rate on claims according to data. And now people are just opening up the floodgates. And listen, here on Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we try to respect the victims and their families, no matter what the situation is. So if you're here to maybe leave, some derogatory comments and so forth, it's not going to, you're not going to be able to last here because we do not tolerate that. And unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast of the internet. Online internet conversations are brutal when it's pertaining to this. What I saw in the last 3 days, this case is 3 days old, was just shocking. Some of the comments. Ed, have you been looking?
Yeah, I mean, it's disgusting. What I've seen is disgusting. We have actual news media personnel, news people. One in particular named Taylor. She is on social media posting some really sick stuff. Okay, I am a firm believer in our constitutional rights. I wholeheartedly believe in the First Amendment, and what she said was disgusting. But she has every right to say it, and I'm glad she did say it because her and people like her who say these things, I know now they're unstable people, and they should be shunned by society. Okay, nobody should be saying these vile, nasty things about the victim and how this homicide occurred or how this murder occurred. It's ridiculous. I don't understand the incivility. It's just totally disgusting.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ed. And listen, to each their own. And like you said, it's a constitutional right and people are going to do it. But again, right here in this community, we have the option to either tolerate it or not tolerate it. We do have our mods here, but again, they can't get everybody. I will review it. I know, Ed, you do the reviewing as well. It's just, there's no place for it. This guy hasn't even been buried yet. His family's still mourning the loss. And I don't care what the situation is. And look, I'm fighting cancer right now. I have the advantage of being covered under the World Trade Center health program. But if I wasn't, I'd be, I'd have to abide by the regulations of my health carrier. It's not UnitedHealthcare, but my son has it. It's just, again, Ed, what do you got?
Well, look what happened to me today. Okay, so my cardiologist is trying to figure out the right dosage of a generic Lipitor, okay, for me. So we've been going through various 20 milligrams, 40 milligrams, 80 milligrams, so forth and so on. But when he went to 80, my liver enzymes went nuts. So he said, okay, we're going to do this. And so we came up with a new game plan, right? And so he prescribed a 90-day supply of 20 milligram generic Lipitor, okay? And my health coverage won't cover it because I'm in an age bracket between 20-something and and 60 something that they won't cover, but over that or below that, they'll cover it. But they will cover 40 milligrams.
Frustrating.
A 90-day supply of 40 milligrams. Okay. Yeah. So, I don't understand how they're saving money by not allowing me to get the 20 milligram, which my doctor wanted. So now I have to do what I have to do with the 40 milligrams to get what my doctor wants.
It's frustrating. And sorry,
but I don't go out and kill somebody over it.
Of course not. We talked about this on the day that we covered this. I apologize that this is covering Jim's face, so let me take it off.
That's okay.
This comment here. So many YouTubers think that the NYPD won't ever get this person. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I'm like, out of all places, that's the dumbest statement I've ever heard. I agree with you on that. Police and FBI need to do their jobs, dot their I's and cross their T's. Look, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one, right? So, and pardon the French, hold on a second.
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
Okay. So
thank you, Cameron.
Thank you, Cameron. But thank you for that comment. Many people are naysayers, but we know that the NYPD, the greatest detectives in the world, are out there working night and day on this. This is the day 3. It's going into day 4. They will get this guy and they will bring him into custody if he's still alive. And I don't know if he is still alive or if he's taking the coward's way out. Who knows? But they're going to hunt him down and find him. They know that he left via a Greyhound bus. But let me show you this. This is the woman who was right here and running away. This is just moments after the shooting. You could see an ambulance is still right here in the upper left, Ed.
Yeah.
She comes walking back up.
Right. And she goes to the police.
Yeah.
All right. Good. And they're getting her information and interviewing her.
Yeah, so he was interviewing this gentleman here, and she just comes and she's like, ooh. And now he gets her information, and they're going to get a statement from her, and so forth. And that's how this goes. But now, we're getting close to the second half of the show. It's almost 40 minutes in. Let's talk about this gun and why you, Jim. I'm directing this directly at you. What's your take on what you saw? And I know it's tough because it is grainy. You don't really get a clear shot of this weapon, but your professional opinion for the folks who are out there who think this was that B&T 9mm, why or why not?
I would say at this point, based on what I've seen with both of those videos, one more grainy than the next, in my opinion, my humble opinion, it appears to be a semi-automatic modern type of pistol with what looks like a suppressor on the front of it. And then what we were talking about before with the jam and everything like that, I would agree with everything we said on it. So I don't think it was the other gun.
All right. Ed, you concur with him, right?
I concur, Doctor. I concur.
Yes. And based on what I've seen, and I looked at some of the professional statements from some of the online YouTube gun enthusiast channels, they make some good arguments on why this is not that type of weapon. And for those of you who don't like guns, I'm just going to show it. This is the B&T Station 645. This is just a demonstration of someone shooting it. So if you don't like this kind of stuff, just tune out and come back in about a minute. I don't know how loud or not this is, but he's got the suppressor, so it's probably not going to be a loud pop.
So there you have every shot that has to be fired has to be cycled that way, okay, manually by the shooter. And you didn't see any smoke or gunshot residue, as we call it, coming out of the breech, okay? But on the actual videotape, you see the GSR, gunshot residue, coming out of the breech.
Correct. So, and I also, read to you guys the statement that I saw online, and they talked about a couple of other different things and characteristics. So, in a professional's humble opinion, and I'm not a professional as it pertains to weapons, Jimmy, you this is your forte. I really don't like that, the news runs with this kind of stuff, and they talk about sources, they talk about this, but at the end of the day, they don't have the weapon recovered. So it's all based on what we're looking at that, when we look at that video from in front of the Hilton. No?
Then it's almost like the herd effect where, somebody comes up with an idea and 20 more people agree with them, 20 people disagree with them. And it just muddies the waters. This investigation is going to be conducted professionally by people who are investigators, professional investigators. They're going to use all the means that they have at their hands now, which videos and GPS equipment and cell phone trackers.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if they didn't get this guy either dead or alive. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, like for instance, the burner phone, alleged burner phone that was recovered. So they have the information from the phone, so now they can geofence it and track its pinging throughout the city for the entire time that he was here, using that phone. Okay, so they'll see what towers was hitting on while he was here. So maybe they can track him going to the park and maybe depositing that paper bag with clothing and so forth, and so on, and his movements prior to the shooting, and then until he disposes the gun in the alleyway.
Right.
So,
yeah. Here's a good question from Kim. Why is the FBI involved so quickly at DutyRon? And I can answer this. The FBI has their main headquarters right in Manhattan. So FBI, we are embedded with them. We have many of our NYPD detectives working alongside of the NYPD. So it's a good question. And we go to our federal partners when we need their help and their resources. And the FBI, Ed, you could talk about Quantico and all the great stuff that they have available to them as it pertains to evidence collection.
Now, earlier in the chat, somebody wrote, what jurisdiction does the NYPD have outside of New York City? Well, depending on what federal task forces we are, we're also special U.S. deputy marshals for members of the NYPD that are in those task forces. So we can go nationwide and even international if need be. But the point is, just because somebody, commits a crime here and flees the state, that doesn't mean that we can't go to another state and search for our suspect. Once we get a name and a bolo goes out, then the fugitive task force, the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force, will get involved. And Ron, you can talk more about that.
Oh yeah, the ATF, the U.S. Marshals, they're embedded with the Fugitive Enforcement Division. The U.S. Marshals are the premier tracking agency. That is what their jam is. That's what they do. And U.S. Marshals undoubtedly are involved in this. And the NYPD, again, because of the resources, the unlimited amount of resources that they have, and the amount of manpower that NYPD has, the 30 to 35,000 members of the NYPD, it's larger than some of the nation's army. I know that we get compared sometimes to the army of Italy. We have more personnel than they do. So it's it's the largest municipal police department in the United States, second to the LAPD. LAPD is the second to the NYPD, rather. But yeah, so they're going to do whatever they have to do. And Ed, I wanted to talk quickly. I'm glad you brought it up. People are saying, oh, because this guy's an executive and because he's, a wealthy elite, that they're doing more. I've worked so many cases where it's a person in the projects gets gunned down viciously. And I have seen the detectives from Major Case go outside of the United States to go and make an apprehension. It happens. It's not just because this guy is a millionaire and the CEO of UnitedHealthcare.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. I said this before. It's the nature of the murder that occurred here that makes it so high profile. It wouldn't, if it was the average Joe citizen walking down the street and murdered that way, it would get the same attention because of all the cameras that were there to capture the actual act in progress.
Right.
Okay. So now you got to understand too, there's a lot of things at play here. Okay. Tourism is a big part of the economy of New York City. The hotel and motel associations are very powerful. Okay. This makes us all look bad. Okay. And it can hurt every aspect of our society. Okay. So whether it's this millionaire CEO that gets whacked like this, or the average Joe citizen who becomes victim to this type of murder, it would get the same media attention because of the way the cameras caught the entire act.
Right. Yeah. You know,
I can add one thing. There's also an interstate component to this, where he got on a bus in Atlanta. Right. The other guy's from a different state. So I could see the FBI at least getting involved in the case. It doesn't mean they're going to do all the investigation, but I could see them getting involved.
Right. If he came up here, as they say, from Atlanta, where they tracked him from Greyhound to New York City with that gun to commit this crime, now you have the feds.
Absolutely. And I wanted to play, because there's so much that is being discussed here, but there's also the ATF has this NIBIN system. Ed, do you want to talk? I think you might have mentioned it during the press conference. That's the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. I'm not sure if it was CNN or what news outlet was talking about it. I want to play this here because this is an important part of the forensics with the ballistics and with everything that they're recovering at the scene.
What the goal is first is from the incident, every moment after that, every moment before that, can we see this individual?
CNN is told there's facial recognition technology being used. The NYPD's Joint Operations Center is being utilized to deploy field teams and analyze the video coming in. Law enforcement experts tell us another resource police have will help them trace and possibly match the bullet shell casings left at the scene. A shell and a live round with the words delay and depose written on them, reflecting popular phrases in the insurance industry. To analyze the shells, experts say they'll use the ATF's NIBIN system. NIBIN standing for National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, which helps them match shell casings with other crime scenes. There are other physical resources to analyze.
So could we talk, Jim, are you familiar with that system?
Yes.
How would it play in a murder like this? Multiple 3 spent rounds, 3 spent cartridges, and 3 live cartridges at the scene. No gun recovered.
So any fired cartridge case, it's going to have a couple of characteristics that are going to be important. One is going to be considered class characteristics. That means there are other firearms that share those characteristics with the item of evidence. Then the other one would be individual characteristics, which sets it apart from all the other firearms. So what NIBIN does is that it's by using a computer to topographically capture an image of these characteristics as they appear on the cartridge case. That would also be the firing pin hit and the breech face marks. That goes into a tremendously big database, and then the computer now will collate that and see where the possibility of it's matching something else. So if this gun was involved in some other state in another shooting, so it's a likelihood that NIBIN is going to pick up on it, and we'll have more information. So it is a really important tool to the field now.
Absolutely. A lot of questions coming in. People talking about Ocean Girl asked, would it help if the UnitedHealthcare helped to up that $10,000 reward? Absolutely. Reward money makes a big difference. And Anthony says the NYPD didn't release everything that they know to the public, and that's for a good reason. If they have an idea or where he is, you don't want to release that information to the media because the suspect might see it too. Absolutely. And if you ask me, does the NYPD at this time have an identification on this suspect, whatever you want to call him? I call him a perp. I would say more than likely that they already know who he is. They just don't know where he is. They already know who he is, but I don't think that they know obviously where he is. Otherwise, he'd be in custody. But I have confidence in the NYPD, and I know that they've done this so many times. These manhunts are not like it's like backbreaking to them. We've been around the block. We know how to do this. This is right up the NYPD's alley. So this is in a small police department in the middle of nowhere. So they've been doing this for a long, long time, and they know how to hunt people down. Ed, you got something?
Well, you know, there's something I saw earlier today that really scared me. There are these new digitally printed masks, okay, that put a face on a cloth, and you just put it over your head. You wear a hoodie, and you cannot tell it's a mask. Right. Other than if you look closely, you won't see the eyes blinking, okay, and the person wearing it can see right through it, so long as they don't, you know, and for facial recognition, it's going to cause a problem.
Right. Yeah.
I agree. I just saw that, and it was a white guy who put a black face on, pulled the hoodie up, and you know what? If I saw him in the street, I would figure it was a black guy.
Yeah.
Elias99 put up on the screen. Can they use facial recognition from the smiling picture from the hostel? Allegedly he was flirting, and then we heard that the girl was just doing her job and say, hey, we need to match your ID to your face. I need to see your face. However she did it, it was the best thing that could have happened, because that's the one and only picture that's out there that we know of. And I mean, maybe they have more, but Ed, could facial recognition come into play with that photo that they have? Because we're not seeing the enhanced version, and that's another thing that the FBI can help with you know, down in Quantico, is
100%.
These pictures.
100%. Yeah. In facial recognition, they have these points of measurements called nodals on the face, and anthropological points that are used in the algorithm to search the face to identify it as, you know, it's another form of biometrics. Okay.
Yep. And this technology was going on in 2012 when I was working the Zuccotti Park detail, and there was all of these out-of-towners that were, you know, committing crimes. They were using facial recognition back in 2012. So I know that it's gotten a lot better. Ocean Girl, in the beginning of the video, we opened it up with the NYPD finding the backpack in Central Park. So you'd have to go back and replay that. I want to thank everybody that's been here. There's many that had sent messages that we didn't get a chance to get to, so I'm going to try to do that now in the next 7 minutes. But Heather Whatever, thank you for being a member for 27 months. She says thank you. Hey, Paula sends in 10. Says, I feel sorry for his children and his family having to deal with the vile social media comments. Absolutely. No one has the right to take a life. And Ed, you said it well in the very first video we did, and then tonight you said it, and so did I. No wrong that was done makes it right to take somebody's life. And
if you want justice, you have to seek it the right way. Correct.
Curious Kiwi, thank you for gifting out a membership. And I know she was complaining about the in the middle of our program ads. That's the only way that we do generate revenue and super chats. And sometimes, you know, like, we're not here asking people to send super chats to us. So when those ads play, Curious Kiwi, that's a way that the channel generates revenue. So thank you for grinning and bearing it. But I know I saw a couple of people like ad in the middle of it, but it happens. That's how it goes. We have no control over it. YouTube does it. So yeah, here's another one from Interesting Tidbits. DOJ was investigating. We didn't get confirmation of that, but I did read many articles, and I did hear conversations about that he sold, you know, hundreds of millions or hundreds of thousands of shares just before this. And, you know, those are things that right now, for the NYPD and the investigators trying to close out this murder investigation, it's really not, they're not really paying close attention to that, because they're on the hunt to try to catch this perp who is obviously on the run. Ed, do you see anything else? And Jimmy, is there anything that we might have missed as it pertains to the weapon? I think we covered everything, no?
I think more information is forthcoming, and I believe what the NYPD will do is hold on to a lot of the information. You can just see what happened with the media. They ran with all these different angles. So if they have something that's important, they're going to keep it to themselves. And I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. And like I said, there's multiple leads coming in on a regular basis to 1-800-577-TIPS. So the NYPD is, and also there was conversation about the multitude of video that they have to go and look through, and they have to look through every second of the videos that they're taking from all of the buildings and the locations of the direction of travel of this perpetrator. So they have to go and look at all the buildings and everything where he has progressed and walked, and it takes hundreds of thousands of man hours to look through that stuff. And they talked about, reporter questioned the police commissioner tonight, are they using AI? And she said, no, we're using manpower to look at these videos. So,
we wanted to put facial recognition software. We wanted to use it in the city. And we got such tremendous pushback from the ACLU about invasion of privacy using that technology, and then there was also some that were saying that it would adversely impact certain communities over others, and that there could be misidentifications and all of this stuff. So unlike certain other nations around the world that do use it and are quite successful in it, we're prohibited from using it.
Right.
And they want to get rid of our license plate readers as well.
And that's a miscarriage of justice, because those really help a lot. KCL is answering Sherry D. I don't know what the question is. I came in here 20 minutes late myself, so I've been here over 40 minutes, and no, I haven't heard them address it since I've been here. I think they mostly talked about the gun use. Well, we stick to the title, UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, shooting, the weapons, and the expert analysis. That's what this live stream is about. So I don't know what her question was, Sherry D, but we try to stay on topic, and then we make these things pinpointed. So you look and you read the title, and we deliver on what the title says. We don't like to go all over the place, although now we are going a little bit beyond that title. So thank you to everyone who sticks in here with us. So let's look at the chat, and then we'll wrap it up. Hashtag Ed, hashtag Jim, hashtag DutyRon, and we'll scan the chat. But yeah, Lieutenant Pete Pranzo, retired NYPD lieutenant, is saying hello to Sister Carol Ann. Richella and Pete are great supporters of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. And Mrs. JMD gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Mrs. JMD. Thank you for that. I'm seeing some questions, but I want it to be pertaining to what we're discussing here. Joey Brooklyn, our great friend, moderator, he is in charge of security. He's our security detail. How can a CEO of a big company not have a security? Hashtag DutyRon, hashtag Ed. I was confused about that, but I know that many corporate execs like to have their privacy, and they don't want to have someone outside the bathroom when they're taking a dump, or they don't want to have someone shadowing them around. But this comes, unfortunately, in instances like this. Thank God they don't happen that often, but it comes at a price. You pay a price, because if he had an advanced detail, he would have had a chance, because this guy came out from right underneath, right from the back of that SUV, and walked right behind him, unbeknownst to him, shot him in the back of the leg, and then shot him in the back, and that was enough to kill him. Ed, that was directed to you as well.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I got distracted because I saw something here. And again, there's no reason for this vitriol that I'm seeing in the chat. No, the cause of death is not greed. Okay, please. Let's stop that. Can't we get above this? Can't we stay above this? All right. Nobody deserves to be killed like this. Nobody. Okay, if they did something wrong in life, like for instance, the investigation that the Department of Justice has into this healthcare and the sale of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars of stock before the announcement of the investigation, it will go through the court system and we'll get our justice that way. Okay, there's no reason for this. Okay,
Yeah.
Is it gonna bring back, say your loved one passed away because of a denial from healthcare? Is it going to bring back that loved one? Is it going to change anything? Now, not only did you lose the loved one, now you can possibly lose your freedom and go to jail over this.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that where our society has come to today?
Yeah. Well, like I said, you can't get all of them, but I do scan back with the chat, and we'll take care of that. But let's get.
And do you really think that the decisions are going to this man that high up in the organization about who's getting what coverage?
Yeah. It's unfortunate. No matter what you say, Ed, it's going to continue to go on. And look. All I could say is this is not the place. If you want to hang out here, these are just people that are just, I guess, catching this live stream and coming on in. I want to thank the moderators. I want to thank the replay viewers. I want to thank everyone who sent in super chats and kind words. Let me just go over. Retta's Winery sent in a $10 super sticker. We appreciate that. Jennifer, thank you for the super sticker. Another 10. Appreciate you guys. Look, we're going to follow this until there is a perpetrator taken into custody, dead or alive, and we're going to follow it, and we're going to keep an eye on it. But I can tell you this, the NYPD and their federal and state and local partners, because now we know this is going to be going outside of New York City, the federal, state, and local partners will work together hand in hand with the NYPD. And, our assets are strong. We could send our aviation unit outside of New York City. They can fly to different states. We're talking about the tri-state area and even beyond. So they're going to do, throw, as Dave Rader says, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at it. I start my cancer treatment on Monday. I'm getting some radiation treatments. So Monday, hopefully things go smoothly Monday and Tuesday, and then we'll see how it goes after that. And then I have the PET scan in March of 2025. The prayer warriors, I want to say thank you to you guys, the people who leave me messages, that send stuff to the P.O. box. And the first thing that I want to just say, when Jim came into the studio, he asked me, and this is how strong our brotherhood is he said to me, "How are you feeling, DutyRon? What's going on?" So I appreciate that, Jim. Thank you for being here and taking an hour out of your Friday night to hang out with us. And I hope your wife saw that you did the lighting the right way and you're not going to get in any trouble. So
hopefully so.
Ed, I know you always have something to say at the end of these things. I like to give you the final word. So Ed Wallace, you got the floor.
Okay. First of all, happy Advent to all of us who share in that, and then in our Jewish faith, we're coming up on their holiday as well, the Hanukkah. So just remember, what season we're in here, folks, and let's have a little more love in this world rather than this vitriol. And I just want to wish everybody stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen to that, brother. And I want to also send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the Thompson family, to the UnitedHealthcare family, to everybody in the community. I listened to many people talk as high school coaches and people who this guy went to school with, and they all had really nice things to say about him. He participated in the Special Olympics and so forth. So I did do some looking into that. So again, sending prayers, strength, positive vibes to his children, his teenage boys, his wife, who he's divorced from, but they seem to have a good relationship as well. So again, that's what I want to end this live stream on. And Jim, thank you so much for your expertise and for coming at last minute. I asked Ed today to call you, and you were just like, "Yeah, I'm on it." So this community really appreciates you, and you're a valuable asset.
Well, quite welcome.
Thank you.
I appreciate you giving me a shot to do this.
You got it. And again, we will be live sometime soon, to give you guys updates. If something breaks, I'll be on it over the weekend. Ed, you got no excuse now. I'm going to get you even if you're outside a construction site. So appreciate everybody being here. Good night from New York City, and we will talk soon. Peace and love from Crime Time with DutyRon.